Death is the cruelest thing that can happen to anyone, but above all, it can bring out the darkest, deepest secrets. It is worse than the wind which just opens the anus of the chicken for all to see. When a man like Dembele dies in his sleep, it calls for every death to be dug up. Successful, tall, handsome and healthy. His family's pride and joy. Dembele didn't get involved in a fatal accident. He wasn't sick. He didn't even get into a physical fight. He simply slept and did not wake up. And his wife, Anwuli, did the first thing that came to her mind when she went to wake up her husband in the morning, and his body was lying cold and stiff on their matrimonial bed. She took to her heels. She ran. Dembele is dead oh! Dembele is dead oh! The neighbors who saw Anwuli running and went in to check to know what was chasing her screamed at the top of their lungs. Anwuli was caught and Dembele's family was summoned. I didn't kill my husband. I swear, I have no hand in his death. I don't know what happened to him, Anwuli told his family when she was brought before them, shaking and weeping. But who would believe her now? Does an innocent person run? What happened to Dembele? They asked Anwuli. He was well yesterday. I even saw him. He greeted my children with a warm smile as he always did on his way back from work yesterday. Many people began to bear witness and ask questions. A man like Dembele cannot just sleep and not wake up. But thank God for the doctor, who came in with a swift result about Dembele. He had been poisoned from the food he ate the previous day. Of course, all hands pointed at Anwuli. She had served her husband a hot and steaming dinner of yam porridge. However, it was not just the food he had eaten from Anwuli's kitchen that killed him. And before evening, things unknown were already beginning to come out in the open. The entire day, the family of Dembele sat down and deliberated on the death of their son. As much as they would have liked to take justice on the one person they believed killed their son so that everyone would go on their way, they didn't, and that was Dembele's wife, Anwuli. I am innocent, Anwuli cried at the top of her lungs. But they raised their noses up at her in disbelief and disgust. Were we expecting you to admit to it? They asked her. But then again, the doctor already said that it wasn't just the food he ate from Anwuli's kitchen. In a community where nothing was exactly kept a secret, in no time, it was discovered that Dembele had actually had his stomach full before he devoured his wife's dinner. That fateful day, Dembele had eaten fruit given to him by his cantankerous colleague, Joshua, just before the close of work. He had thought no one had seen him. But again, even in the confines of an office wall, no secret is hidden. As soon as that was revealed, Joshua was dragged from his house to the small court that had been formed to find Dembele's killer and preside judgment on who was found guilty. What did you give Dembele to eat yesterday? They asked Joshua. Joshua was confused at first. He didn't understand what was happening. He thought of lying. After all, the dead could not speak. But what if lying made him look like the real killer? What if? If they could tell that he gave Dembele the fruit the day before, surely they would be able to tell if he was lying, right? It was even worse because Dembele's family was staring daggers at him, daring him to lie, as though they could already see the truth through his soul. Meanwhile, Dembele's wife was still whimpering by the side, saying, I didn't kill my husband. I didn't kill my husband. But of course, no one was listening to her for now, as all attention was now on Joshua. Apples, just two of them, Joshua eventually responded, choosing to say the truth. What did you put in the apples? They asked Joshua. Joshua shook his head and said that he didn't put anything in it. But they refused to believe him. Why would they believe him? He already admitted to giving Dembele something to eat. So why should they believe that what he gave Dembele had no poison in it? They turned their attention away from Joshua and focused on the next name mentioned, Martins. Someone had seen Dembele walk into Martins' home after work the previous day, and they were certain he ate there because when Dembele came out almost 40 minutes later, he had a toothpick in his mouth. He was trying to get rid of something that had stuck in his teeth, probably a chunk of meat, who knows. Just the same way Joshua was dragged out of his house to the small court, Martins was also brought forth, and like the others, he was quick to say that he knew nothing of the death of Dembele. He was a Christian who had never killed anyone before. "Did you give Dembele food yesterday or not?" They asked him. Who cared whether or not he was a Christian? What was their business in that? Martins knew that he too couldn't lie. People already saw Dembele coming out of his house with a toothpick, and everyone already knew what that meant. "I did, but I didn't poison it," Martins answered with tears already gathering in his eyes. But they didn't believe him either. Eventually, Dembele's family soon realized that it wasn't even the night that Dembele died that mattered, or even the hours before that night. No, it was the day before, and the day before that one, and the day before that one. So, they decided to start from Dembele's wife, Anwuli, because the matter must be settled and Dembele's killer must be found. Please like and subscribe. Starting with Dembele's wife was the right thing to do. He lived with her under the same roof, isn't it? There must have been a motive. Anwuli, we have been hearing stories and just because we have been quiet doesn't mean that we have no knowledge of what was going on in your marriage with Dembele. One of Dembele's family members told her. It was a warning for her not to think of lying to them. As usual, they would know because Dembele, who liked to present himself as an all-righteous man, never hesitated to complain to his family every single time that Anwuli went out of line. So of course they knew. "I didn't do anything to him," Anwuli kept insisting amidst tears. But they were already past the stage of just believing word of mouth. Perhaps, if their golden Dembele wasn't dead, they would have listened to her. "Did you tell Dembele that you are willing to do whatever it takes to leave him?" they asked Anwuli. Anwuli was shocked to hear those exact words. It wasn't because they were deep and vile. It was because those were the exact words that Anwuli had said to Dembele. Not just that morning before he left for work, but several times before. How could she deny it now? Worse, how could she convince them after that statement that she didn't poison her husband? Dembele was a good husband to her. He married her when she was only out of secondary school. She couldn't even pass her senior WAEC, but Dembele, intelligent and educated, still married her. What did Dembele get in the end? He was constantly disrespected by this small girl who is supposed to respect him and worship him for marrying her. That was one of Dembele's family members. Dembele was not a saint, Anwuli screamed, tired of being painted as the evil one. If she allowed them to continue like that without standing for herself, everyone watching would conclude that she killed her husband before they even faced the two men awaiting trial. Dembele knew I didn't love him and never wanted to be married to him. But yet, he forced me into marrying him. Anwuli cried out. He married me because he wanted to be seen as the savior. He wanted to be seen as the man who pitied the girl who couldn't pass her senior WAEC and married her. Isn't that why he told everyone who cared to listen? Anwuli asked everyone present. They had all heard the story because Dembele told it proudly. But it was not the only reason Anwuli tolerated an unhappy and a loveless marriage. Every mistake she made, Dembele would remind her of how dull she was. If he bought a blender and she couldn't use it properly, he would taunt her like this: "You should have read the manual that came with it." But of course, you cannot read. If you could read very well, you would have passed your WAEC. If Anwuli said came instead of come, or if she said sachet instead of sachet, Dembele would start all over again. "It's WAEC I didn't pass, oh, not that I killed somebody," Anwuli would always say. But Dembele would continue with his hurtful and painful words. Most times, Anwuli ended up crying and wishing for the world to come to an end. And so, is that enough to poison him? Is it now a crime to correct someone's poor English? Dembele's family questioned Anwuli. To them, it was not enough for Anwuli to do what she did. Only that Anwuli kept insisting that she didn't kill him. She didn't even poison him. That's not all, Anwuli told them. Well, they had all the time in the world for her to provide enough justification for their son lying cold and stiff in the morgue. Anwuli told them how Dembele would deprive her of money if she crossed the line or did something he didn't like. He knew that she was completely dependent on him, but the moment he was displeased, Dembele would take away all the privileges from Anwuli. He would not give her the usual daily allowance, leaving her to starve for days until Anwuli apologized the right way. The right way of apologizing for Dembele was Anwuli writing a full page of what she had done wrong. A full page, oh, why she was sorry, an assurance not to repeat the same mistake. The same illiterate wife he always said couldn't read. And yet, he wanted her to write a full page of apology. If that wasn't just to punish Anwuli, then she didn't know what it was. Anwuli would write and Dembele would proofread. He would find mistakes in every word and sentence. There was always something she didn't spell correctly, and a word she had missed or placed wrongly. Dembele would cancel what she had done and ask her to start all over again. Sometimes, they would be at it for 1 week, and Professor Dembele still wouldn't be satisfied. It was usually in that anger, starvation, frustration, and the reminder that she didn't want to marry this man in the first place that would make Anwuli make that statement to Dembele and anyone whose ears were nearby. "I would do anything possible to leave this marriage." Still, Dembele's family didn't think it was enough reason for Anwuli to poison their dearly beloved son who lived with perfection. "I didn't kill him," Anwuli begged. "It never even crossed my mind," Anwuli said. But no one could read Anwuli's mind. They could only hear the words that came out of her mouth. "If you are innocent, how then did you intend to free yourself from Dembele?" They asked Anwuli. But for the life of her, she didn't have a response to give. "We will come back to you, but let us continue with someone else for now," they said when Anwuli didn't have a response to give, because truly, she had never really thought of the way out. They left Anwuli and focused their attention on Joshua, the colleague who gave Dembele apples the day before. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It was Joshua's turn now. "Joshua, what did our son do to you that you have decided to end his life?" they asked Joshua. "I swear on my father's honor, I didn't kill him," Joshua swore. But everyone, especially people who worked with Dembele and Joshua, knew exactly how it had been in the office between them. For years, Dembele and Joshua had been like cat and dog. They couldn't stand each other. Dembele was the shining star in the office. He did everything right. and got all the praises, while Joshua got the exact opposite because he wasn't half as competent as Dembele. Please, will you show me how you work so excellently well without mistakes? Joshua asked Dembele months back. He was tired of the constant complaints from their superior and didn't want to lose his job. So even though he was jealous of Dembele, he still swallowed the pride he had left and went to him. Joshua, between the two of us, who is older? Dembele asked Joshua, his shoulders rising like flour that had been mixed with yeast. Joshua didn't understand the question, but typical of Dembele, he was always ready to answer the uncomfortable questions that people couldn't answer. You are well older than me, and you got employed 3 years before I was hired. So who is supposed to be teaching who? If you were smart and intelligent, you wouldn't come to me begging to be helped. Dembele told Joshua haughtily. Joshua was pained to his bones, but still, for the sake of his job, he went ahead to plead with Dembele even though other staff members were listening and could hear every word that was exchanged. Instead of feeling sorry for Joshua, Dembele had laughed at him mockingly. You want me to teach you how I work so well, as though we both share your salary when it comes. That is never happening. Dembele told Joshua without an iota of sympathy. And ever since, it has been torture for Joshua. Dembele intentionally made Joshua regret every day at work, and their superiors weren't helping matters. They always praised Dembele over Joshua and didn't hesitate to scold Joshua over every mistake. Then that fateful day, at noon, they had called Dembele and Joshua into the conference room and said they were promoting Dembele to become Joshua's manager. Ha! They told Joshua that if Dembele was not pleased with Joshua's work and sent report against him, he would be fired. So that is why you decided to kill him? They yelled at Joshua. You knew he was going to write report against you and you would be fired. So you chose to send Dembele to his early grave. They lamented. Joshua shook his head. Yes, I knew he was going to write report against me to get me fired. So I offered him apples I had brought from the house that day as an olive branch, specifically using it to make peace with him and to plead with him not to have me fired. Joshua told them. He doubted that they would believe him, but he just couldn't stand by and watch them pin a man's death on his neck. Dembele laughed and accepted it, and he ate it in front of me. If I had poisoned him, wouldn't he have died right there and then? Joshua asked the panel of judges. Not all poisons kill fast, they countered Joshua. So they told him that he had more than enough motive to see Dembele dead. He was frustrated while Dembele was getting all the credits and promotions. He knew that his job lay in Dembele's hands now. And so, in order to save his job and be free from Dembele's endless mockery, he decided to take Dembele's life. Joshua tried to explain to them that his plans were never to kill Dembele, but to make peace with him so that Dembele would not write reports against him. But no one wanted to listen to him. They already had what they wanted to hear, and so they decided to move on from him. The last person was Martins. Why would Dembele come to your house to eat after knowing that his wife's dinner would be waiting for him? They asked Martins. It was no longer news that Martins had been owing Dembele a huge amount of money for more than a year now. Dembele had been asking Martins to pay up, but things had been really bad for Martins. However, Dembele was running out of patience. Each time Dembele came to ask for his money, he ensured that he did it to the hearing of neighbors and passers-by. Dembele would speak at the top of his lungs. The day before, Dembele threatened Martins. openly and loudly that he would humiliate Martins, then lock up his entire family until he got his money. So, Martins, in order to appease Dembele, had prepared something delicious. When Dembele came to the house that evening, after the close of work, Martins and his entire household pleaded with Dembele for some more patience and then used the food as an appeal, with the promise that the very next day, Martins would bring the money to Dembele's house. Well, it appeared Dembele couldn't turn down food offers, so he sat down and ate up everything that he was served. And when he was done, he took a toothpick and left, still threatening to carry out his promise of an arrest if Martins didn't stick to his words. You could not pay up your loan. You didn't want to end up in jail, so you decided to get rid of Dembele. The family accused Martins. Martins begged and explained, but they didn't believe him either. Right in front of Dembele's hot and enraged family were three suspects, each with a motive to kill Dembele. One of them certainly killed Dembele with food that was given to him. But who among them? That was the question that hung in the thick air. Don't forget to like, drop a comment and subscribe. The question of who killed Dembele hung in the air for some minutes. Some people strongly believed that it was Joshua. Some others felt that it had to be Martins. And the other group of people would place their bet on Anwuli, each for their own reason, but they couldn't pass their judgment on the wrong person. Desperate to find their son's killer, yes, but desperate to convict the wrong person, absolutely not. And so the only way to go about it would be to rely on the expertise of the prophet. Everyone knew the prophet had the ability to see what no one else could see. He knew who was lying and what had happened when no one was looking. If the prophet showed up here right away, he would point a finger at who was responsible, and the whole thing would be over. Send for the prophet, tell him it is urgent. And off the messenger went to get the prophet. If they had even remembered the prophet from the beginning, they wouldn't have wasted the entire day listening to the same people that had every reason to kill Dembele. They were the only ones Dembele ate from the entire day, and so someone must have done it, or maybe all of them at once. When the prophet arrived, everyone was relieved. Finally, this whole court case would come to an end, and the culprit would be made to face the full wrath of the law without mercy. Prophet, our dearest Dembele is dead. He slept and didn't wake up like everyone else. The doctor has confirmed that he was poisoned. Is that true? They asked the prophet even though they already believed the report of the doctor. If they didn't, they wouldn't have spent hours listening to Anwuli, Joshua and Martins. Yes, he was poisoned, the prophet confirmed. Dembele's family was relieved. They were closer to finding out who killed Dembele. They showed Anwuli, Joshua and Martins to the prophet and explained what had transpired between all three of them and Dembele, and how they had given Dembele something to eat the day before. Who among them fed Dembele with poison? They asked the prophet. The entire place fell quiet as everyone waited for the prophet to point a finger or mention a name. Their heartbeats could be heard as they waited in anticipation. If a pin fell to the ground, it would make a sound because of how quiet everyone was. The prophet looked at Anwuli, Joshua and Martins, and he shook his head, much to the confusion of Dembele's family and everyone else. None of them killed Dembele, the prophet announced. Ah, or is this prophet drunk today? That was the thought that went through the minds of most people, especially Dembele's family. Then who did? They asked him, their anger rising. Before Dembele got home, he stopped by the house of Rosie and had a sumptuous meal there. The prophet said. Murmurs erupted in the small crowd, and whispers passed among members of the Dembele's family. No one had ever heard of that name before. Who is she? They asked the prophet. Dembele's secret lover. The prophet revealed. The atmosphere erupted in chaos instantly, as no one believed that Dembele kept a mistress. A secret lover? Dembele was upright and saintly. There was no way he indulged in something like that. But the prophet was clear with his words. Dembele had been seeing Rosie for over a year now, and on that fateful evening, he had gone to Rosie's apartment after he left Martin's house. How is that even possible? They all asked. But the prophet could see and know what was supposed to be hidden from the sun. He decided to tell them what happened between Dembele and Rosie, his mistress. Dembele's family, his wife, and everyone present there were in for a story time that they already knew had a tragic ending. Dembele arrived at Rosie's apartment, and as usual, they talked and laughed, and Dembele was ready to spend some time with her as he always did before going back to Anwuli, the wife he married. While they were at it, Dembele saw what he wasn't supposed to see. Rosie's pregnancy test results. She was pregnant. Rosie had kept it where she didn't think Dembele would look. But she wasn't very lucky, and without asking questions, Dembele automatically thought that the pregnancy belonged to him. He leaped for joy, holding Rosie and professing love to her over and over again. I will marry you, Rosie. I will marry you as my second wife, Dembele announced to Rosie happily. Rosie wanted Dembele to slow down, but Dembele was unstoppable. His joy was full to the brim. Instead of divorcing Anwuli, he would marry Rosie as second wife so that he could taunt her for not bearing children. Tomorrow, as early as possible, I will make the announcement to my family and everyone who cares to know, Dembele told Rosie. And that was when Rosie knew that she had to act fast. Dembele wasn't the father of the baby, which was why she hadn't wanted him to know. The man responsible was the one Rosie loved and wanted to be with, and they were already making plans for their wedding. If he hears of Dembele's announcement, the wedding would be off. Rosie didn't want to lose him, and she most certainly didn't want to end up as Dembele's wife, first or second. So, as she prepared a quick meal for Dembele, she added a pinch of poison that would kill him slowly. Everyone was thrown into disarray at this shocking revelation. Wonders shall never end. No one would have thought. While people marched off to Rosie's apartment to apprehend her for killing Dembele, his family wept for the shameful demise of their precious son. His death didn't just reveal what he had been hiding all this time, but it also showed that Dembele was far from perfect, as his family liked to believe. Meanwhile, there was Anwuli, bowed to the ground and smiling, silently thanking her maker for freeing her in the most unexpected way. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to turn on your notification button to get more stories like this.